Thanks for checking out this episode of the Rookie Big Board podcast. If you enjoy it, make sure to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and you can access all of my work, patreon.com/theFFEducator. This is episode 35 of the Rookie Big Board podcast. I'm your host, Matt Hicks, the FF Educator. I'm excited to be back at it here. Took a couple weeks off here, more than I wanted to, but it was a really busy time for me between the wedding, getting back on track with the real life job. And I'm excited to get into things here because I think we're at a really crucial, critical point of the Dynasty season projecting into NFL draft season. There's a real overlap here, and it is a key point in value when it comes to draft picks. So I'm interested here to break down the actual value right now today in early November of the 2022 rookie class, give you an idea of what to do with your draft picks. If you have accepted that you are a rebuilding team, helping you understand how much you buy into the 22 picks versus the 23 picks, exactly what's the best process, what we can expect out of this upcoming rookie class. We're going to compare it back to 2021. We're going to take a little bit of peek into 2023 and really figure out exactly where the value of the class stands today. So let's go ahead and let's jump right into it here, looking at the 2022 rookie big board. Now, I'm actually showing here the rookie big board. If you're watching, if you're listening, you can get access to it, patreon.com/theFFEducator, rookie big board, 22, 21, Devy rankings, broken down by class, broken down by position, Dynasty rankings, Cornerstone rankings, Slack channel, all that available, $3 a month. Highly encourage you to check it out. So what I've done here, the 2022 rookie big board just went through a major update here, and I was able to give an early projection for where some of the value may lie in this class. Now, there's a combination of things that go into the rookie big board rankings. As always, it's tape evaluation, it's NFL draft projection, and it's what I see as future opportunity for that player in the NFL, because that opportunity better idea of fantasy football value. Obviously, at this point out, there is a ton of projection. It's rough film analysis. It's early NFL draft projection. A lot is going to change, which is why it's difficult to fully assess the value of the picks. But we're going to work off of where we are now versus where we finished with the 2021 class. So, as you know, with the rookie big board here, I put players in fantasy football projections based on how I see them actually fitting into the fantasy football atmosphere. Generational being the best, franchise cornerstone, league winners, weekly starters. Those are our real meat and potatoes. Our QB, RB, wide receiver, tight ends, 1 or 2. And then flex fillers when we start to get into those RB3s, our wide receiver 3s, QB3s, tight ends 4s, those type of guys. So those are the real meat and potatoes of most draft classes for fantasy football purposes. Those are our points of value. So looking at where I have the rookie big board right now here, you could see for the 2022 class, I have 2 players at the franchise cornerstone level. Right now, that is just Matt Corral and Sam Howell. Matt Corral has a slightly higher RBBR, rookie big board rating. I have those guys both as day one early projections for NFL draft capital. That certainly helps, and it's going to help project them to some legitimate opportunity. We know top 10 rookie quarterbacks tend to get a good shot at starting early in their rookie season. So if we compare that back to last year, there were 2 franchise cornerstones in the 2021 rookie big board as well. So that is even. There is currently not in the 2022 class a generational player. Trevor Lawrence fit into that generational category. I think this is one of the reasons why the 2022 class is getting a little bit of a knock, because there's not that Trevor Lawrence, that guy at the absolute top, that's kind of carrying the narrative of the class. But keeping in mind here, most draft classes are not going to have a Trevor Lawrence. Most draft classes are going to have a Matt Corral versus Sam Howell debate, which is what we're currently working into right now. So here's the difference right now. League winners. I have 1 player projected in the league winner tier here, which is, again, a potential wide receiver or running back, quarterback 1, and that is just Chris Alave. And I'm actually higher on Chris Alave than most folks, but I am a huge fan of Chris Alave. I love his tape. I think he's a top 20 NFL draft pick. I don't think most folks have him in that draft projection right now, but I would be pretty surprised if he doesn't end up in that projection. So compare that here to where the 2021 board ended up. We had 4 league winners in the 2021 board. So again, if you're looking at the top of the class right now, you're saying, okay, there's reason to believe that the 2022 class is weaker compared to the 2021 class. But here's where things are going to start to get a little bit different. In the 2021 class, I had 7 players finish in the weekly starter category here. Weekly starters, those are the guys in the running back 2, wide receiver 2. They're going to slide into running back, wide receiver 3s, depending on the matchups. Quarterback 2, remember the rookie big board is always super flex. So thinking of quarterback 2s. And then this is also where borderline tight end 1-2 guys end up falling here. So it's definitely still a really important category. There were 7 players that ended up in weekly starter in the 2021 big board. Currently, I have 14 players in this weekly starter category. Now, these are 14 players that have high to very high projections for where they may, or for, I should say, high for very high for their likelihood to declare right there. So that's something to keep in mind too. As I kind of show through this top 24 here, you can see different weekly starters. Some of them I'm not actually expecting with a high level of confidence to declare for the draft, but players that I do have a high to very high expectation that they declare for the draft. Isaiah Spiller, running back out of Texas A&M, quarterback Carson Strong out of Nevada, running back Breece Hall out of Iowa State, Kyron Williams, running back Notre Dame, Traylon Burks, highly athletic wide receiver out of Arkansas, quarterback Malik Willis from Liberty, Garrett Wilson, Ohio State wide receiver, David Bell, Purdue wide receiver, quarterback Kenny Pickett from Pitt. Again, all of these guys are in the weekly starter category. John Mechie, wide receiver from Alabama, Justin Ross, wide receiver from Clemson, Keaton Slovis right now still on that borderline quarterback for USC. We're going to see, I think the NFL is still going to like Keaton Slovis. And then Zamir White, the running back out of UGA. All of those guys, I think right now have the projection to be able to compete in that weekly starter fantasy football relevant category. And that's much higher than, again, the 7 from the 2021 class. That's where we ended up. Here's the other part of things. As we dig deeper into this class, look at the guys that I put in this flex filler role. Think of flex filler as guys who you can't rely on week in and week out, but matchup-wise, they're going to have the opportunity to hit on certain weeks, and as they grow into their career, they could become more reliable weekly starter type guys. Right now, the players that fall into that category here with a high level to very high level of declaring, you have Jerome Ford out of Cincinnati, running back Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA, wide receiver Drake London, even coming off of the injury, I do still project him to declare at this point in time. Running back Brian Robinson Jr. out of Alabama, Jahan Dotson, wide receiver out of Penn State, and then Kenneth Walker is just outside of that range right now. And so these are all players who I think have a decent shot at contributing here to the 2022 NFL rookie class, making it a really strong, vibrant class. So if we're thinking about it here, in terms of the actual strength of the class, right now it's not currently projecting to be as strong at the top of the class, but there's certainly room here as we work through the middle of the class that there's a lot of strength. And I like to tell folks this all the time. When you're acquiring rookie picks, especially if you're projecting 2 years out, but really even projecting out now, there's still a lot of volatility in the standings of your league. So anytime somebody says, hey, I'm trading for a top 3 pick, do you think this is worth it? I always advise them to consider that most picks that they're trading for, they should expect that to fall generally in the 106 range, right? Anywhere from 104 to 108. That value is going to swing unless you know a team is really, really good when you acquire that pick or really, really bad. So if you're really looking at the heart of this 2022 rookie class, there's a lot of value to that. As always, you know I'm going to tell you this, you should be trading for second round picks. That is going to be a huge point of value, especially as folks are railing the class. You acquire those second round picks, those are guys that always end up returning value on their own, and then there's even more potential for that happening. I mean, look at over the last couple of years here. Guys like Michael Pittman blowing up right now. T. Higgins has been really successful, consistent second round pick. I know a lot of the folks were on Rashad Bateman. That was a second round pick. Michael Carter is starting to perform really well for the Jets. Second round rookie pick. I mean, we can go on and on giving examples of guys that you could get in the second round here and really returning value. Most people got Mac Jones in the second round of Superflex leagues last year, and acquiring those second round picks early is the best approach here. Now, when we're actually going in and looking at this class, one of the things that I like to point out here is that a lot of folks are very excited looking at the 2023 class, which is for good reason. There's a lot of really strong players in the 2023 class. Actually going to go ahead and pull up right now what my 2023 Devy board looks like. All right, there's a ton of talent there. My number 1 and number 2 Devy players on the list, Bijan Robinson, Bryce Young, highlight this class. DJ Uiagalelei is struggling right now, but he's still, for me, in that top Devy conversation. Tank Bigsby, Jahmyr Gibbs, these running backs. There is a lot of reason to be excited about this Devy class. That's why folks are saying, buy 23, buy 2023. But what I'm going to advise you to do is keep in mind that these classes are volatile. Everybody here that I've kind of pulled a snapshot for, they're not all going to declare. They're not all going to be a part of the 2023 class. There's a variety of factors that are going to affect the guys listed in this group, right? Players face injuries that force reclassification. A perfect example, George Pickens, the wide receiver out of UGA, was supposed to be a headliner for the 2022 class. That injury is going to force him to reclassify into the 2023 class. It's unfortunate, but injuries are part of the game. Some of the top guys in the 2023 class right now will end up reclassifying into 2024 because of injuries. There's also various examples of players that may reclassify because of less than expected performance. Spencer Rattler was supposed to be the headliner of this 2022 rookie class. He disappointed on that value. The expectation at this point in time is that he transfers back, or I should say he transfers out of Oklahoma and into a new program. That's going to force a reclassification. Spencer Rattler could declare in 2022. I think we're expecting him right now to declare in 2023. So another example of how draft classes could change. How about players that simply choose to return? I had Chris Alave projected as a first-round selection in 2021. He chose to come back, and now he's going to be at the top of the 2022 board. You go back even further. The year before that, in the 2020 draft, a lot of folks expected Devonta Smith to declare in 2019. He ends up declaring for 2021. A lot of folks expected him to declare in 2020. He ends up declaring in 2021. So you could see it's actually pretty consistent. These players, especially at these large competitive programs, they choose to come back for another year. They want to solidify their first-round draft stock. They want to compete for a championship. There's various reasons, but consistently players choose to return. You want to go back a little bit further. A lot of folks expected Justin Herbert to declare a year before he did. He stayed at Oregon for that extra year. That had a huge boost on his draft stock, but that affected that quarterback class as well. So there's a lot of examples of players that just choose to stay longer. Some of these big names, it might surprise you. Bryce Young may choose to stay an extra year. Marvin Mims may choose to stay an extra year. Michael Mayer, especially a tight end, may choose to stay an extra year. So we can't just assume those guys are definitely going to be in the 2023 class when there's a possibility that they reclassify into 2024. And how about players that we just expect to win jobs that don't win them as quickly? You look at a guy like Kendall Milton, who is very talented, but just by the nature of his system, he's not able to win that job outright. For a lot of players, they're not going to declare for the NFL draft until they've been around long enough to really get a large piece of the workload, right? And for folks who are into analytics, the longer those guys stay around, the lower their value tends to be from that angle. And we know analytics is a huge part of this community, so that's going to drop the overall value of those players, causing a drop in the overall value of the class. So what I'm saying here is there is a legitimate reason, if you're looking from 2021 into 2022, there's reason to be a little bit nervous about the top of the class, your top 3 or 4 draft picks. But if you look at the depth in the class, it looks really strong right now. And that's really important because as we progress through the NFL draft process, that depth is going to turn into hype, right? That's what happens. So again, if we're looking at all the guys I mentioned, those guys in the weekly starter or the flex filler type positions. those are the guys that have the ability to rise up really significantly here through the draft process. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of situations where players are points in time to look for value increases from here to the 2022 NFL Draft. The first part, it's coming up now. And that's why I wanted to do this episode now. Late November, early December, as the college football season tends to wind down, as we have a better idea of the players that actually will be a part of the draft class, or we're seriously projecting to be a part of the draft class, as that happens, folks like me, folks who do this professionally, unlike me, folks who are really a part of the draft community, they have more and more time to dig into the tape. I mentioned right now my tape evaluations for these players. Right now, they are primarily placeholder tape evaluations based on NFL draft projection and the position, or and more likely, or they are the preseason, the summer scouting tape grades. As I dig into more tape, for the most part, that helps the majority of players. I like to placehold tape grades lower so that they can rise in value, so I'm not overselling players. I'd rather undersell than oversell them to you. So their tape evaluations, the tape grades are probably going to rise as I get to watch more tape on them, and as other folks in the scouting community get to watch more tape on them, they're going to find guys they like, they're going to hype them up, folks are going to start to get excited, they're going to start to pick out the guys that they like, raises the value of the class. Showcase Bowl season. Once we see who's at the East-West Shrine Bowl, who's at the NFLPA Players Bowl, who's at the Reese Senior Bowl, once we start to see who is present in those situations, that will allow us to start really figuring out who is locked into the draft class, what's the full depth of the class going to look like, and guys consistently rise up through Showcase Bowl season. Baker Mayfield was a huge riser after Senior Bowl week. It's what bumped his stock all the way up to the top of that NFL draft class in that 2017 year. He was not somebody going into Senior Bowl week that would have been the number one overall draft pick, right? And so is there a quarterback in this year's class, especially as you look at these seniors, guys like Malik Willis, who has had off and on tape and not the best competition to play against, if he's able to show up to Mobile and show out, that's going to rise his value. And we know classes go, especially in Superflex leagues, as the quarterbacks go. And so if Malik Willis rises higher, his value, this is just one example of a player this could happen to, the entire value of the class will increase, right? And so paying attention through Showcase Bowl season. The Combine, we know athletic testing is key. The Combine will boost a lot of folks up. Look for a guy like Treylon Burks, who has fun tape, maybe not necessarily the most production, good production, but not the most production. When he goes to the Combine, he measures in with his ridiculous size, and he's going to put up absolutely incredible athletic numbers. Watch his NFL draft stock shoot up. I promise you, after the Combine, folks are going to expect Treylon Burks to be a locked first rounder. That's what I have him projected for. I think most folks right now probably see him closer to a top 50 pick. I'm telling you, this guy's going to go top 15, top 20 once he puts in those athletic testing numbers at that size. All right, and then between Combine season and draft season, we know what that is. That's hype season, and that is just pumping up value. You will never see at that point in the year the narrative really being slamming against the class. You slam the class this time of the year because it's the off season, right? Everybody's listening to guys like me hyping up players, showing the upside, showing the potential. Everything's focused on the NFL draft. There's hope, there's potential, there's opportunity. Every player, you start to see all the best in them. And then when I sit there and I point out flaws or challenges to that player's future fantasy football projection, then I get absolutely railed on Twitter and in the comments, right? Because nobody likes to be negative that time of the year. And value for your picks is up, 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 up. So even if you have a long-term rebuild, and this is a situation I'm in right now, I have a long-term rebuild. I'm playing for 2023. You know what I'm doing right now? 2023 picks are overpriced. I'm buying 2022 picks, and I'm going to hold them through the winter, into the spring. When it comes to rookie draft season, I'm going to flip those, and then I'm going to sell them for 2023 picks, because then at that point, when it's rookie draft time, then players have their player they want, their favorite player, the guy that they're willing to move up to overpay for, and that's when you take advantage and buy 2023 picks. You don't buy 2023 picks right now. You buy the 2022 picks, you hold on to them, and then you flip them later on. So there's a lot to dig into, a lot to break down here, but the big takeaways I want you to take away from this episode, and hopefully by showing you a little bit of insight here into the 2022 rookie big board, into my 2023 rankings, and then also reflecting a little bit on the 2021 rookie big board, we have an idea that it's understandable at this point in time that folks are a little bit disappointed because we always want immediate production from rookies, the natural backlash from that, and over focus right now on immediate production in dynasty leagues. Those two things combined lead to us undervaluing the next year's picks. This is a consistent cycle. I could do evergreen content on this every November, right? And then as we get into the film, as we start to pick our favorite guys, as we give these guys opportunities to really showcase their abilities through showcase bowls, through combine testing, through interviews with teams, as all the mock drafts start to come out and we swirl about the perfect landing spots for all of these guys, that's when their value starts to increase. So whether you're in a short-term rebuild, long-term rebuild, I encourage you to go after those 2022 picks right now. All right, thanks for checking out this episode of the Rookie Big Board. As a reminder, Devy rankings, Dynasty rankings, 2021 Rookie Big Board, 2022 Rookie Big Board, Cornerstone rankings, Slack channel, extra access to all the content, patreon.com/theFFeducator. I'd appreciate you checking it out, and I appreciate you checking out this episode of the Rookie Big Board.